I'm James Beckwith, President and CEO of Five Star Bank. As a community bank, we believe that open dialogue about the issues affecting our region is vitally important. From the economy to the environment to social issues, we look forward to the conversations and hope you'll join in.
Welcome to Studio Sacramento. I'm your host, Scott Syfax. Today's show is in partnership with the American Leadership Forum, an organization where leaders come together to unite, strengthen, and serve for the benefit of our region. ALF helped us select today's topic, regional collaboration. The Sacramento region is made up of 6 counties, more than 17 cities, and countless special districts and agencies. With so many agencies performing so many critical functions, are taxpayers being served efficiently? And what are the issues that cross boundaries? Are our governments able to work together for the betterment of the region? Answering these questions today are Ray Carriage, City Manager of Roseville, Patrick Blacklock, Administrator of Yolo County, and former Supervisor Jim Williams, President of Williams and Patton Architects. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Well, let's get started. Today, regional collaboration, because of our economic times, is on the minds of many people who care about not only the quality of life within our region, but about using taxpayer resources efficiently. Why is it relevant, though, to the average person in this region? Answer?
Well, number one, because we are in a very deep economic crisis. If you look at the performance of the Sacramento region, even comparatively to the rest of the nation, we are unfortunately in that bottom tier of performing economies. And we have to find the strategies and the energy to turn that around.
Okay. Ray, I want to ask you, you're out in Roseville, and for someone out in Elk Grove, what is the importance of Roseville to Elk Grove with regards to regional collaboration?
For me, the answer is that if it's good for Roseville, it's going to be good for the region, and anything that's good for the region is going to be good for Roseville and Elk Grove. So there are so many things that you mentioned before, Scott. There are so many areas where we have overlapping responsibilities that it's very important that if we can kind of communicate or coordinate our efforts with all the other jurisdictions, I think ultimately that's going to be for the betterment of the region. And I'm thinking in terms of infrastructure. You know, we all have our infrastructure programs. I think what's missing right now is really like an overall coordination of those infrastructure efforts. And I think the more coordination we can get between the jurisdictions, I think the more efficiencies, the more cost effectiveness that's going to produce, and that's going to result in an increase for the citizens within this region. But for me, the main thing is you mentioned earlier that people, when they look at us as a region. You talk about Sacramento, you know, you're talking about Elk Grove, you're talking about Roseville, and I think the word that needs to go out to everybody is that, you know, Sacramento is a very diverse region. There are many things that we do very, very well here. And I think that it's important, though, that we all work together to produce a much better product and improve our image within, you know, for the rest of the country.
Patrick, Yolo County, we're separated in Sacramento County by the river. But in terms of cross-regional collaboration, does it exist?
Well, it certainly does, from the small to the big. We share responsibility for maintaining and operating a bridge with Sacramento County. We do that together. So that's the small. On the big, we have SACOG, the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, where the 6 counties and all the cities are coming together to jointly plan. I would echo something Ray said, though, and that is I think there's an opportunity to do more on the economic development front and to grow jobs. And, for example, I know that clean technology is an area of emphasis for us as a region, but I don't know that we've drilled down to say Roseville needs to do this, Yolo County needs to do this, West Sacramento needs to do this in order to advance that initiative. I think there are some more specifics that could come through better and increase collaboration on that front.
But Jim, isn't it a zero-sum game? I mean, you know, Roseville's win is West Sacramento's loss. And is it realistic to assume that governments can collaborate together. I mean, even if you put aside things like the fact that you have labor agreements, parochialism, fiefdoms, and the like, that keep collaboration from taking place. But isn't this a zero-sum game where everybody's just fighting for their piece of the pie?
I would say it's the opposite, and unfortunately there are too many people that conceive of it as a zero-sum game. The fact of the matter is, if you look at how interconnected our jurisdictions are, when I first ran for political office, I came from a perspective of a businessman, and I was involved in getting Placer County to rejoin SACOG after being gone for some 20 years. And the major reason was our business community and our citizens, they don't even really know where half those jurisdictional lines are, and they really don't care. So if you look at the fact that a business like a Intel or a Hewlett-Packard, they draw their employees from throughout the region. Those employees go home and they shop in their local neighborhoods, and they participate in the schools, they pay their property taxes. So anytime we can score a win in the region, it's going to be a win for everybody, and it's almost irrelevant as to where it locates within the region when you look at that context.
If I could jump
I
in.
would disagree a little respectfully disagree with Jim. I mean, for me, it really is the way it's played these days. It really is this zero-sum game. You know, if a benefit to Roseville, someone's going to lose on that. I mean, we look at it from the perspective our city runs on taxes, sales taxes, property taxes. The more sales tax we can get in, the more businesses we can bring in. That means that's more sales tax available to us, and the more amenities we can put into the city of Roseville to make it an even more attractive place to live, work, and play, which will then attract even more sales tax. So I think what's missing here, the region cooperates very well on a number of different aspects. But if you look at economic development, it's definitely every jurisdiction is out for itself. You know, we talk a lot about cooperation, but we've never been able to pull that one off.
I was going to say, isn't the caveat to that if we can bring employment in from outside the Sacramento area, raising the net employment is going to help all ships rise. Even if the employer goes to Roseville, if it's a net increase in employment.
It's true, but I have to balance a budget every year. I need more sales taxes. I need more property taxes in order to, as I say, to plow more money back into the city and provide more amenities. And the only way I'm going to do that is to attract more business. Now, if that business comes from Folsom or it comes from the city of Sacramento, that's really not my first concern, to be honest with you. And I'm sure that Folsom and Sac feels exactly the same way. So I don't agree with that system, but that's really the way that it's set up right now. So the system is set up that we have to compete with each other. And I think, is that good for the overall region? You know, competition is good,
But let me ask you all a question. For me, that seems like a crabs in the barrel mentality, in that, you know, in order for him to win, you have to lose. And while that is the tax system, you know, right now, we're competing against Austin. We're competing against Denver. Sure. What do we do to sort of get past that local balkanization mentality?
The reason we're in this economic crisis today is because we lost track of what the fundamentals of a good economy are. And you can go compete for all the shopping malls and all the shopping centers, but those are a consumer end of things. And where we're really missing it is in becoming attractive to the creative part of our economy, the generative part of the economy. And that's the one that ultimately drives all of the rest of it. We can fight over the remains in the manner that you're talking about, but if we don't get back to making this an attractive place to do the creative enterprises that export to the world and are attractive to the kind of companies and people that want to come in and provide that, that's the basis of building a strong economy.
I agree with Jim 150%. I agree with you. But the way the system is set up now, the reality as I see it, it doesn't fulfill that vision. I think that Jim is absolutely correct, but that's not the way the game is played these days. I don't think, not the way that I see the game.
So let me turn the tables here. Yeah. When the recession hit, Rahm Emanuel, President Obama's first chief of staff, coined a classic line. He said, "Never waste a good crisis." All right, we're in one right now. What's the low-hanging fruit? What does this crisis precipitate in terms of places where it is that we can get past this zero-sum
Can I
game?
answer that? And I don't mean to toot Roseville's horn. Although
Not at all?
Not, well, just a little. Just a little.
Just an added benefit.
But I mean, we've set up a development corporation now, and the idea is that we need to go out and acquire everything we can, because this is where the deals are being made. I mean, people, I think, if they have an eye to the future, this is exactly the time. It's almost predatory, I think. But you know, if we're going to be successful in the future, we have to go ahead and acquire property. Last night we have our council approve almost a $40 million infrastructure package for downtown. This is the time to take advantage because construction costs are lower. And if we wait for the market to come back, we will be 2 years behind them. And the opportunities will be missed. So I think if people are looking to the future, now is the time to make those deals. And I think any progressive organization, the counties and the cities that don't do this, are actually missing the boat. So there are advantages. I agree with Rahm Emanuel. There are times, this is the time for people to act.
How is YOLO taking advantage of the crisis?
I've got a different answer because Yolo County's taken a vow of poverty and that we're going to keep our ag land, and so we focus development into the cities. So the low-hanging fruit for us is how we deliver those services. And in Yolo County, the city councils, all of them, and the Board of Supervisors have developed and approved a shared services initiative. And what they're basically saying is they care more about the service provided to the public than the logo on the door of the truck or the logo on the t-shirt. And they think that if we can reduce duplication of services among our cities and the county, that we can actually provide a higher level of service at a lower cost. And we're just now implementing one of the first programs under that, our Office of Emergency Services, where we've all come together to run a single OES, Office of Emergency Services shop, at a lower cost, and hopefully we'll be able to provide an increased level of service as a result.
And I would argue that the crisis is the driver. I think Rahm Emanuel hit it right. And if you look back on the history of the region, there have been a couple of times where that has driven some successes, I would argue. One of them was the water forum, where we had a significant crisis because we had oversubscribed the water. There were competing interests from the environmental community, and that was a long and involved, painful process, but it involved agencies and jurisdictions from throughout the region that finally came to an operating agreement for the American River, which has stood the test of time pretty well to this date. The other is the crisis we are facing in losing all federal funding for our transportation. If we didn't get together as a region and coordinate that with the air quality impacts that were coming down the road, out of that came the regional blueprint, which most of the jurisdictions are trying to comply with, with all the competing pressures that go on. So there are those examples, and I think the examples that Patrick was bringing forward are ones that we can look at on a case-by-case basis to expand throughout the region. But you have this, I would say, in a county like Placer, there's a great fear of adding additional layers of government. And so it has to be done in a collaborative, almost a federated manner.
Instead of creating a new level of government,
Right.
It's merely to create more connectedness.
Yeah.
There's also disparate need or interest in doing that. My friend in Roseville, for example, probably has a bigger general fund or discretionary dollar comparatively to Yolo County. I may feel greater pressure, the Board of Supervisors may feel greater pressure in Yolo County to do a shared services model than some of the cities do. And so we're working through that and trying to come up with some sort of common approach to that.
When are you coming across the river with that shared services agreement?
We actually, we've gone the other way. I hate to say that here, but we're working with Solano and Napa County on a regional public health lab that we just turned on this week. So that's another example. We've gone to a multi-county approach. And I think if you've got you're sending something to the public health lab and the courier shows up, you don't know where it's going. What you care about is that you get those results back in a timely manner, and we're going to be able to do that.
What's the bottom line to the public, though, in terms of looking at arrangements like this? Am I going to see that my property tax bill is ever going to go down?
Go down? I think under Prop 13, that's probably unlikely. I
I've
think
seen
the question
some property tax bills going
Well,
down.
good-
If you
good
got any
point, good
commercial
point.
property.
I think what we're trying to do is provide the same or higher level of service with fewer dollars. That's where we find ourselves today.
I just following up on one of Jim's points. I mean, I think the regional cooperation operates very well at a certain level, mainly on the infrastructure, whether it's through SACOG, transportation, and water, and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting to me that the role of the state I think our biggest problem, one of our biggest problems in this region is the state of California, right? And what I would like to see, and I think it's happening at some level, is that, you know, a lot of stuff is coming down through the state legislature that affects us directly, particularly on infrastructure issues, water, power, and all those kinds of things. That I think it would be great if we could, there's an opportunity there for us to work very closely together as a region and become more of a regional voice. That's happening to a degree. So I see areas of cooperation in the region to be more on those levels of the infrastructure. They do result, I think, in savings ultimately, you know, to the public, especially if we can modify some of the stuff that's coming down from the state level.
Well, actually, to go back to the state level issue, Pat, you were talking earlier about some of the impediments that the state has in place that actually frustrate regional cooperation. Can you speak to that?
Well, one of the questions we're looking at is, can we contract with a city, or could a city contract with us, or a JPA, or whatever model we're looking at? And there's a specific government code section that says a county may only contract
Which
out.
code section?
Government Code 31,000 that
Okay.
says a county may only contract out very specific services, and it identifies what those services is. The effect of that is that it prohibits us potentially from contracting out other services. So there's a barrier now to potentially working with the city on any sort of public-private partnership model that we're going to have to work through and potentially need legislative solutions to help us embrace.
So the state of California frustrates efficiency.
Yes.
Isn't that a surprise?
No.
Well, you know, when you said that the citizens seek greater efficiency from the government, you know, sometimes you have to wonder, because we continue to get laws passed that hamper governmental efficiency, at least and particularly in the governmental decision-making process. So it's one of those contradictory values that I think needs further examination.
Well, to build on that point, the public will say all the time that they want greater efficiency and they like consolidation alike. But you know, about 20 years ago, there was a major initiative here in this region on consolidation. That was the late Mayor Joe Cerna proposed to consolidate the city and county of Sacramento together with each other. It was a wild failure at the polls. And so it appears sometimes that the people speak with one mind in what they say, but vote with their feet in another direction.
But the problem is, and I think it's, isn't this a result of a lack of engagement? I mean, when you look at the polls, how many people actually vote? We talk a lot about, you know, the public, but who actually understands or takes the trouble to understand the real issues? And I think our media does us a disservice in this too, because they do not do a very good job of explaining the issues to the public. And then how do you get the public to take an interest and to get out there and actually vote? So I think what's happening here is, and Scott, I'm going to use your 80-20 rule is very appropriate here. You know, you got 20% of the people, if you like, making 80% of the decisions. Maybe I think that maybe reflect itself in the polling, and you know, what actually gets approved by the voters. So it seems to me that you know, we don't actually hear the voice of the voters that much these days, but we hear interest groups.
Well, you know, I know that all of you have experienced the phenomenon of holding a hearing on a subject where millions or sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars are at stake, and there are 4 people in the room other than the staff and the people making the decision.
It's true.
I do have an across the river example on that point. We're working with Sacramento State to have one of the graduate students look at what is the best way to connect with the public now in this new era of social media and other means, so that we can hopefully reach a broader audience, and hopefully we're going to get a recommended set of best practices out of that tell us these are some new means we can use to connect with the public, and perhaps the old town hall method isn't going to be the most effective going forward.
But you know, it comes down to is really more developing a regional vision and a leadership infrastructure that can deliver it. I will tell you that in my time on the Board of Supervisors, every board meeting I would get a stack of documentation that would be at a minimum this tall. And you can't expect the public to have any appreciation of the intricacies of that. So it comes down to a trust and a belief in the direction, and that you've got a leadership infrastructure that you think is going to make the right decision. You may not agree with every one of those, but there are so many things that have a complexity level that, to Ray's point about who is the public, Well, just go run for office sometime, and you know, if you think you know a lot of people, go out and knock on doors in what you think is your neighborhood and find out how many you don't know.
But to follow up on your point there, Jim, I mean, we talk about the policymakers at the county and the city level making decisions. But I want to go back to an early point, and that's the state. I mean, if the people understood and knew the amount of regulation there is on the utilities, the electrical utilities, water utilities, and when they see their rates going up, I mean, they instantly blame the city, the county, the utility provider. But if they only knew the requirements that the state has now added on the production of electricity, you know, with renewables and all this thing, and how this jacks the price up, I mean, I think there would be a riot, actually, if you actually. So we have decision makers at the local level that are kind of bound by some of the requirements coming out of the state, and they are forced to make decisions based upon that. And the public generally does not understand. All they see is a utility rate has gone up. They don't really understand that, you know what, if you go back to your local, you know, representative at the state or senator, you know, that a lot of these things come from the state. And that kind of that harms us economically. I mean, it distresses me a lot that the state of California is 50th in the list of states, and there are only 50 states last time I checked, right? We're flat last when it comes to, you know, business friendliness. And that affects us in the region. That affects our economic development.
Well, let's talk about that from a regional perspective. What's the low-hanging fruit with regards to business friendliness? Maybe we can't affect state policy, but what should this region be doing on collaboration with regards to the economy?
Can I just give you an example? All right, it's a Roseville example. I apologize.
Are we pushing Roseville again?
Well, I'm sorry. We were in a competition for, I think it was the second largest solar panel manufacturer in the world. You might know this, Jim, right? It came down to two sites. One was in Roseville. Site was perfect, size-wise, access, utility, everything. And the other site was in Arizona. And we lost the race. And so we just followed up, well, you know, what was the problem? You know, why didn't you pick Roseville? They said, we love the Roseville site, but we're frightened to death of the state of California. You know,
I have an example like that too, talking to a very large employer who was already in the region, saying, what can we do to make sure you stay here? Their answer was, there's very little you can do. If we leave, it'll be because of the state of California and their regulations.
Yeah. So we talk about regional issues. I mean, we've identified one here, a big one. We don't know, we have no control over that, you know.
You know, anecdotally, I've been working through my position on the board at Valley Vision with a statewide organization of comparable organizations to Valley Vision, which we can't explain right now, but that Los Angeles City did their first economic development plan in their history. And one of the things that they pointed out to us in their dialogue was, as soon as they mentioned the word business friendly in the dialogue with the city council and the others, the labor leaders came out of the woodwork, because to them that was code work for anti-union. And so they discovered that they had to go back and do the groundwork that says, what good is a labor leadership if they showed that the city of Los Angeles had grown by 500,000 people and had not created a single new job within its jurisdiction in the last 10 to 15 years. And so that was somewhat of a breakthrough for them, and if you check right now, you'll see that Los Angeles is making some progress in those. I think we need to do something comparable in our region. We have to engage that dialogue, because sooner or later, if you're a worker and your labor leaders are leading you in a path that says that your employment base is continually shrinking, then you better start looking at what are the basics that are going to attract those jobs back to your region, because you're going to find an increasingly large decline of the people that are even eligible to be in your union.
We're going to have labor on so that they can respond to that, because obviously they're going to have to be part of the solution. I've got a question. I want to take this down to the personal for a second. With all we've talked about and all the challenges there are in the state, you all are all three highly employable guys. Why are you still here?
I love it. For me, this economic time is a time of opportunity. And I love to be in an environment where there are things to do, where we're moving forward and we're making progress, however incrementally. So I find the challenges of this current economy kind of stimulating, I guess you could say. And I mean, doing the job that I'm doing now, I'm in a community that wants to move forward, and we're going to make some big progress, and I want to be part of anything that's positive. So that's why I'm here. I know that this economic cycle, that we're going to get through this, right? I don't know how long it's going to take us to get through it, but there are opportunities now to do things that perhaps didn't exist before. It's the opportunity to change government, and I'm in an environment right now where I believe that it's possible to change government and change it for the better. So for me, that's what this is all about. I want to do good things, and I want to be in an environment where I can help raise the quality of life for the people, and I think where I am right now in this region is a good place to do that.
Patrick.
I love Yolo County. My family and I love Yolo County. We have young kids. That's where we chose to make our home and raise them. And I want to be part of continuing to make that such a wonderful place to live. And so being part of the leadership allows me to do that. From my front porch, I can see the lights of UC Davis, and I can see the lights of Woodland, and I just feel at home.
All right.
Well, I'm actually living on property that's been in my family since 1915, so my roots go very deep. I have had the privilege of living and traveling around the world, and I come back completely convinced that we live in a blessed place on earth, and that if we can get out of our own way, that we have unlimited potential. We create the barriers that exist.
All right, we're down to our last 15 seconds. I've got a question. I want a yes or no answer. Could regional collaboration help finance the new arena? Yes or no, Ray?
No.
Patrick?
Yes?
Jim?
Yes.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. 2 yeses and a no for regional collaboration on raising financing for the new arena. That might be one of the low-hanging fruit to pursue. Maybe it's economic collaboration. I would like to thank the American Leadership Forum for its editorial partnership and our guests, Ray Carriage, Patrick Blacklock, and Jim Williams. That is our show for today. Folks, there's lots of talk on television, but there's only a few places where you can be a part of the conversations that matter. I'm Scott Syfax, and you've been watching Studio Sacramento. Join us next time right here on KVIE.
I'm James Beckwith, President and CEO of Five Star Bank. As a community bank, we believe that open dialogue about the issues affecting our region is vitally important. From the economy to the environment to social issues, we look forward to the conversations and hope you'll join in.